Welcome to the Giants Huddle, a New York Giants podcast.
Welcome to the Giants Huddle podcast. I'm John Schmelk. Today's guest, the new offensive coordinator for the New York Football Giants, Jason Garrett. But first, I want to remind you can find the Giants Huddle podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms, the Giants mobile app, and on Giants.com. For all the Giants podcast offerings, go to Giants.com/podcast. You have the Giants Huddle, Giants Rewind with Carl Banks, the Giants Interview podcast, and of course, Big Blue Kickoff Live, our daily call-in show every day from 12 to 1. And now we're joined by the new offensive coordinator for your New York Football Giants. That is Jason Garrett. Jason, welcome back to New York. It's been a long time, huh? Welcome back.
Yeah, excited to be back, John. You had a great visit there this past week, and obviously have a little history with the Giants. It was fun to be back in the building. Can't wait to get going.
What is it about the Giants organization from your time here that made you want to be a part of it again?
Well, it's just a first-class organization, and you think about the history and tradition of the New York Giants franchise and what the Maras have built and what the Tisches have built and all the great teams, all the great coaches, all the great players who have been a part of this organization throughout its history. And, you know, when you're a player in this organization like I was for 4 years, you feel that. You feel that history. You feel that standard. And, again, I was so fortunate to be a part of it, played with some great players, played under some great coaches, and most importantly, played for a great organization. So really excited to be back, excited to get going.
You got to spend the day up here with Coach Judge before the position was offered and you accepted it. What was that meeting like, and what was it about Coach Judge that jumped out to you that made you think it'd be a good fit working under him?
Well, we had a great day together. You know, I didn't know Joe real well. Been around him on a couple different occasions and had good conversations with him, really good football conversations. And, you know, he and I know a lot of the same people. I worked for Coach Saban. He worked for Coach Saban. Coach has always said such great things about Joe, and so many other people that he's been around, that I've been around, say the same thing. You know, what he's like as a person, what he's like as a football coach. And, you know, we visited over the phone this past weekend and had a great talk. And it was probably one of those talks that I don't know how long it was, half hour, 45 minutes, and it probably could have gone all night. And just talking back and forth, getting to know each other a little bit more, talking about football. And you know, that's when we decided it'd be a good idea to come up and spend the day together. And we did that on Wednesday. Had a great visit with him, a couple members of the staff, other people in the organization, and it just felt right to me, and felt really comfortable to be around him. I think we have shared values as people and shared values as football coaches, and what we want to build with the Giants. So, again, just excited to be a part of it.
You know, Coach, you mentioned your time under Coach Saban. A lot of people forget your first coaching job was quarterbacks coach for the Miami Dolphins under head coach Nick Saban. And obviously we know Joe Judge had experience with him at Alabama. How much do you think that similar experience learning from such a great coach allowed you guys to connect the way you did?
Well, it was an amazing experience for me. It was two weeks after I retired from playing. My last year playing, I spent the last half of the season with the Dolphins as a quarterback, and then Coach Saban was hired, and I was fortunate enough to be hired as the quarterback coach. And, you know, I'd been around football, obviously, a long time. My dad was a coach. You know, I grew up in it. I was fortunate to play in the NFL for a number of years, but this was my first chance to be in the staff room and to be on the other side of it as a coach, and have Coach Saban be the guy who was showing me how to do it was just an invaluable experience. And I can't tell you the number of times that I've thought about different situations as an assistant coach or a head coach, and you thought about, you know, how Coach Saban would handle it. And oftentimes I would call him and ask him how he'd handle it. And just a great resource, a great friend, a great mentor to me for a number of years. And, you know, knowing Joe went through that same experience down there in Alabama, again, I think that allows us to connect even on a deeper level. And, you know, we're so fortunate to be around really good people throughout our careers. I was fortunate to grow up in a great family and have great influences there. But as a player for a number of years, the players I was around, the coaches I had the great fortune to coach for, and then as a coach to be around some of the guys like Coach Saban, you know, their impact has been so significant and has made a huge difference in my life.
Well, Coach, you're very familiar with the New York Football Giants. You've played them twice a year, for more than a decade. Let's talk about some of the players you'll be inheriting here, and let's start with Daniel Jones. From what you saw from Daniel Jones, evaluating him in the draft process and then playing against him this year, what is it about his game that gets you excited?
Well, I want to start by saying really what Joe said in his introductory press conference. I have an outsider's perspective on the Giants. Great respect for the organization, great respect for the players on the team that we've competed against. But again, it's coming from the outside. I can't wait to get on the inside and start to work with some of these guys. And, you mentioned Daniel Jones. We thought a lot of him coming out of college. We weren't in the market for a quarterback in the first round the year that he came out. At the same time, you go through that evaluation process. And, anybody who was around him in our organization with the Cowboys just thought the world of him. And, he was highly regarded on our draft board and someone we thought a lot about. And, his training with Coach Cutcliffe down at Duke, the career that he had down there, was something that, everyone was drawn to. But I think maybe more than anything else, the kind of young man he is. And that's what we thought coming out in the draft. And by all accounts, in his first year with the Giants, that's what everyone had said. Loves football, works very hard at it. First one in the building, last one to leave. Wants to be a great player, wants to be great for the team. I really liked how he played. When we played against him and we saw him on film this year, he was tough, he was competitive, playing the game the right way. Not easy to do as a rookie quarterback in the NFL, but certainly excited to get to work with Daniel.
And it's amazing because you had a similar situation with Dak Prescott in Dallas where he was kind of forced into duty as a rookie. He ended up succeeding, having a great year. Daniel Jones earned his way onto the field this year for the Giants. What does it say about a quarterback when they're able to have that type of success so quickly without a lot of NFL experience under their belt?
Well, it's a big challenge for any rookie in the NFL. I don't care what level of college football you played at. It's a jump. It's a transition to play in the National Football League, and no position more challenging than the quarterback position. There are a lot of things going on for a quarterback, and it takes time to function well at a high level at that position. And for Daniel to go in and play as well as he did last year, again, from an outsider's perspective, was really impressive. And again, I think it has a lot to do with the kind of young man he is, and certainly someone we're excited to get to work with.
What are some of the lessons you learned about developing quarterbacks from your time teaching, developing Tony Romo, and then Dak Prescott?
Well, again, I was so fortunate to be around such great coaches throughout my career. Junior high coaches, high school coaches, college coaches, and then the guys in the NFL. And, I played for Norv Turner and Ernie Zampese, two of the great, offensive minds in the history of the NFL. I was fortunate with the Giants to play for Jim Fossil, and Sean Payton was our offensive coordinator, and so many others throughout my career. And I learned so much from those guys. And, when I became a coach, I certainly relied on that experience. And having played quarterback, you have a lot of different experiences I think you can relate to when you're teaching a quarterback at whatever level they are, a veteran quarterback, a guy in the middle of his career, or young guys just starting out. So you certainly want to rely on that, the influences I've had and the experiences that I've had. And Joe's using the right word. You have to embrace the teaching part of it. That's the best part of coaching, is teaching guys and helping them grow and develop individually in the context of the team. So there's so many moving parts of the quarterback position. There's so much to learn. And I've always just tried to embrace teaching each aspect of it, and been fortunate to be around a lot of good players.
Coach Judge has been very careful to speak about how he wants his systems to be catered to the personnel on the team. What do you think are the basic principles in your mind for a successful offense that you want to put on the field?
Yeah, there are a lot of components to being a great offense. The first thing we want to do is you want to attack defenses different ways, and that starts with run and pass. You want to be as balanced as you can be. And then within the running game, you want to be able to do different things, schematically, direct runs, indirect runs, misdirection runs, all of those things, again, with the emphasis on attack in different ways. But the foundation of that is being physical. We want to be a physical football team, and that's how it starts. And my experience as a player and a coach is it's hard to be a great football player, to be a great team if you're not physical. So that's where it'll start. But again, attack in different ways in the running game, and then attack in different ways in the passing game. A drop back game, a movement game, play action, run action, all of those kinds of things, and then getting the ball to different players. And again, those are generic statements. Your system needs to be flexible enough to cater to the players that you have, do what they do best. And you never want to be constricted by your system that this is what we do regardless of who we have on our football team. It has to be comprehensive enough and flexible enough to make sure you're putting the players that you have in the best position to be successful. But it starts with that idea of attacking different ways. We want to be physical. We want to be able to throw it. We want to be able to run it, different ways to put some pressure on the defense. But again, you get to know the players. You get to know what they do best. You try to highlight their strengths. You try to minimize their weaknesses and go get after the defense.
You talked about flexibility in scheme. Coach Judge talked about, 1 week, maybe it makes sense that we run it 40 times. The next week, maybe it makes sense that we pass it 50 times. And if you're making those type of adjustments, alterations week to week, as a teacher, what's the challenge to get your players ready when you can be so variable from week to week?
Well, again, I think it goes back to that basic premise. We're going to be a physical offense. We're going to attack different ways. And within games, there are going to be times where you run it a lot more. And in games, you're going to be time you're going to throw it a lot more. You want to aggressively take what the defense gives you, and you have to be able to execute in both areas and execute within each area a few different ways based on what you need to do that week to win that ball game. So it starts with the ability to have a system that's comprehensive, that's flexible, that allows you to do different things, and then teaching your players, the importance of that. And you want to be able to make the adjustments from week to week. You want to be able to make the adjustments within the game to allow you to win that particular ball game.
Coach, welcome back. We look forward to seeing you up here next week. Thanks so much for the time today.
Hey, thank you. Have a great weekend.
That's the Giants' new offensive coordinator, Jason Garrett. We thank him for being generous with his time today on the Giants Huddle podcast. I want to remind everybody you can find the Giants Huddle podcast on the Giants mobile app, on Giants.com, and on all your favorite podcast platforms. Make sure you find the subscribe. If you're on Apple Podcasts, leave a positive review. And for all the Giants podcasts and how to subscribe, go to Giants.com/podcast. For Jason Garrett, I'm John Schmelk. We'll see you next time, everybody. Adios.
Hey, Giants fans. Saquon Barkley here. You want to see more videos? Subscribe below.